Hello, hi everybody. It's Lauralyn here. I'm just going to try and share my screen with you so that you can see what we're going to be talking about. Nice to see you. Well, I was going to say nice to see you. The only person I can see is myself on the screen here with myself. People were saying they wanted the face behind the voice, so I thought I would technologically try and do this. Let's see if it works. For those of you that have never been to a BridgePoint webinar before or been to a program, I'm Lauralyn. I'm the clinical program director, and I wanted to come on today. I know you're being inundated, flooded with so much Instagram feeds and YouTube and Twitter, but I did want to take a moment out of my day, out of your day, to talk about the uncertainty that we're all facing right now. People often find these webinars helpful in terms of, if you haven't been to BridgePoint, you get a taste of what we're about. If you have been to a BridgePoint program, this is a nice reminder of some of our language, some of the things we've worked on in program. And so it's just a nice touch point, hey? So I thought I'd come on here today and talk how to manage uncertainty, because we will always have it. There is no way of outdoing uncertainty. So instead of trying to get out of it, let's figure out a way to move through it and manage it. BridgePoint remains open. Our phone lines are up and running, emails up and running. Let us know, reach out if you need support. We are, like this webinar, trying to find some different ways to reach out and touch you. I want to sing that song, hands, touching hands. Anyway, sorry. We want to find a way to connect with you virtually and hopefully provide support to those that are either in recovery, thinking about recovery, just trying to manage the day-to-day of life with an eating disorder, disordered eating, just struggles with weight, shape, size, food, our bodies. So hopefully this information will be helpful. I'm using it myself because I'm in this right along with the resties. So this is a good reminder for me too. So how to manage uncertainty. You know me, I had to go and look at Wikipedia and see what they said about uncertainty. So there's a big definition. The short and sweet of it is, uncertainty is situations involving imperfect or unknown information. Well, if that doesn't sum up what we're doing right now, I don't know what does. So we are definitely in a situation involving all sorts of information, some more accurate than others, and also for some of us, not enough information. Hey, so we're walking literally, well, we've kind of been pushed from the known into the unknown, and that is super scary. And for those of you that know me, it brings up my favorite word, vulnerability. So I'm a big fan of Brene Brown. She's a professor out of the University of Houston, and a lot of people have gotten used to me talking a lot about her at BridgePoint. I find her research and her information very grounding to me. I appreciate that she goes a step beyond just saying, hey, you've got to be vulnerable, or hey, you've got shame, to now what? What do I do with that? And so she has provided me with a lot of guidance in terms of how to live the life that I want, which is to show up, be seen, live brave, really live a wholehearted life. So this is a quote from her. It's something she put out most recently on, I think I saw it on Instagram, but it's on her blog page as well. She says, this pandemic experience is a massive experiment in collective vulnerability. We can be our worst selves when we're afraid, or our very best, bravest selves. In the context of fear and vulnerability, there's often very little in between, because when we are uncertain and afraid, our default is self-protection. We don't have to be scary when we're scared. Let's choose awkward, brave, and kind, and let's choose each other. So this, I was all over this. This resonated for me because one, this idea of a massive experiment in collective vulnerability. The idea that we're all going through this. It reminded me of, at BridgePoint, we talk a lot about self-compassion from Kristen Neff's work. And remember, one of the components of self-compassion that she talks about is common humanity, that we all experience this. We all go through this. So while the details of our experience might be different, and remember, I always encourage people, don't get caught in the details, because the details are rabbit holes where we lose sight of the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is we're all in this together. We're all human. We're all having a human experience. And while the details might be different, we all know what it's like to be afraid, fear, shame, joy, compassion, passion, love. I mean, we all have our own, we know what that feels like, hey? So the other piece that really stood out for me is when she said, our default is self-protection. So actually, our brain, our bodies are doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Remember, there's that reptilian lizard part of our brain, the oldest part of our brain, that is there to protect us. And so it is always scanning the environment, looking for good, bad, safe, unsafe, right? And when it finds, and it loves story, right? So it's looking for a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if it can see a pattern, that helps the brain, and thus us, feel safe. But when we don't feel safe, when we're feeling uncertain and afraid, what do we want to do? We want to armor up. We want to go into defense mode. But that's a constrictive way of being, of living, right? And so is there another option? And so that's what we're talking about today. So vulnerability, big word in Brené's work, big word in my life. So 3 components: risk, uncertainty, and emotional exposure. We've got all of that going on right now. These are risky times. Risky in terms of they feel risky because we don't know what's going to happen. There's risk to our health. There's risk to our finances. There's risk to our relationships. It's really the unknown right now. So that uncertainty leaves us feeling very exposed. And emotional exposure, think of both our emotional experience of COVID-19, the pandemic, some of the measures that are being put in place to try and keep everyone safe. So there's our emotional experience, and then there's also our experience of other people's emotions. I don't know if you had this happen to you before, right at the very beginning of this, when everyone was buying a lot of toilet paper. I was at the shopping mall and I felt this need, like, I need to buy more toilet paper. That didn't come from a rational place because I already had toilet paper, but I was picking up on everyone else's kind of that panic and scarcity mentality. There's not enoughness, right? So what do we do with vulnerability? Because again, we can't get out of it. Living this thing called life is a vulnerable process. So how do we do vulnerability? Well, there's things we can control and things we can't control. And the goods, there's the good and not the good and the bad, but the good thing is we've only got control of ourselves. For other people, they're going to feel like, oh, that doesn't feel good at all. It feels totally uncomfortable, right? I prefer not good and bad. I prefer comfortable and uncomfortable. So I can't control other people's thoughts. I can't control their words, feelings, actions, behaviors. All I've got control of is me. All you've got control of is you. your thoughts, your words, your actions, your behavior, and your feelings. For those of you that have practiced and maybe perfected people pleasing, taking care of others, this is a scary idea because one, there's safety in being able to manage, well, the illusion of managing other people's feelings, behaviors, because then the story we tell ourselves is, if you're feeling okay, then I'm safe because I don't have to deal with your anger, your violence, your upsetness, right? And also there's that piece of, if my self-worth, if some of my identity is tied up in taking care of other people, then what do I do if I'm not taking care of, who am I if I'm not taking care of other people? What is my worth, right? So I want to check in with all of you because some of the behaviors that might be showing up when we're feeling uncertain, okay, one, we're going to go to the well-worn, tried and tested things that at least helped us feel safe for a little bit. So you might find yourself seeking excessive reassurance from others, right? So again, not trusting ourselves, giving the message that I can't trust my own thoughts and emotions and feelings and actions. I need that externally. List making and making lists about lists. Double checking and triple checking. Refusing to delegate tasks to others, because if we can do it ourselves, then one, we know it's getting done. We know it's getting done the way we want it to have it done. Procrastination and avoidance. Remember, procrastination is actually the other side of, or the other end of the spectrum from perfectionism. Perfectionism is driven by this external need to please and meet an expectation that is being driven outside of us. If I can meet your expectations, then you can't blame me, shame me, judge me, ridicule me. That makes me feel safe. There'll be the illusion of belonging or fitting in. Procrastination is the other side of that. That's too overwhelming. I don't even want to risk the story of, or having evidence to support my story of failure, so I'm just going to avoid. And then distraction. None of these are in and of themselves a problem, right? We all need distractions. The difference between distraction and numbing is that while I can take time out, go watch some funny dog videos, go for a walk, phone a friend, I am still going to come back to this. I'm not denying myself, my emotions, my thoughts, my feelings. So I will come back, but sometimes we need to take a break. It's like almost like our timeout, right? Distraction, to come back into that window of tolerance for our nervous system, right? Because when our nervous system, when we're in distress, our frontal cortex, the logic part of our brain, the rational part of it just goes offline, right? And so we are in the fight, flight, freeze state, and that doesn't leave a lot of options. So distraction can help us bring the nervous system back down into a place where the brain comes back online, and we're able to make what in DBT they'd call go into our wise mind, when we're accessing both our emotions and our rational thoughts and making the best decisions with the information we have at the time, right? List making, I often talk about my sister. She loves making lists. Lists are part of her process of just working through things. But any of these, if they get in the way of you and your relationship with others, so if the list making is at the cost of someone not completing something on that list, or if I make a list and it doesn't happen, then I shame myself and I berate myself. If that gets in the way of your relationship with self and others, then it's no longer helpful, okay? So when we get hooked by emotion, that's a term that Brene often uses. When I get hooked by emotion, what do? Well, we can use our permission slips. At BridgePoint, we talk, and Brene Brown talks a lot about permission slips. Literally finishing this sentence. I give myself permission to. Not permission from anybody else. It's from you to you. In this time, it could be I give myself permission to rest. Because especially if you've been go, 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 busy, 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 avoid, 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 when we are forced to slow down, all that we haven't been honoring and acknowledging, like the fact that our bodies are exhausted, we're working on going on fumes, it's going to show up. So I give myself permission to rest. I give myself permission to go out and play at an appropriate social distance. I give myself permission to stay focused on recovery. I give myself permission to have feelings. How often do we do that? Actually give ourselves permission to feel feelings. Often we go into the, nope, shut this down. Oh, this is not good. Nope, can't go there, right? Let's give ourselves permission to feel. Another tool is going to be mindfulness and paying attention, but without judgment. Because if we're being mindful and then judging ourselves about it, it's not helpful. Breathing is going to be huge because remember, emotions are energy. Emotion, energy is in motion. And if we can use the breath to move the emotions, then it won't get trapped in our system. Right? And that's where we get into difficulty if it gets trapped. And again, self-compassion. Kristen Neff has a whole bunch of resources on her website, selfcompassion.org. But if we distill it down to its simplest, self-compassion is talking to ourselves the way we talk to a loved one. Get curious, because the emotions are communication. They're telling us something. So rather than judging them, let's get curious and say, I wonder what this sadness is trying to tell me. First, I need to feel it. Because remember, when we go into the get curious, we come up into our brain, and the brain feels like a safer place. I'll analyze this, I'll dissect it, that'll be better. Versus, there's sadness right now, and I have to feel this. Okay? After we've felt it, let's get curious and say, I feel fear. Where do I need safety? Well, there's not a lot of things that feel safe right now. Maybe you need to set a boundary. We've kind of been forced into setting some boundaries with social distancing, but maybe you need to set a boundary in terms of I need to take some time out for myself. I need to set a boundary around how we're going to communicate with each other over text, or a boundary around how much social information, social media I'm going to allow in during the day, right? So get curious. We need to come back into our bodies. Like I was saying earlier, up here is safe. Down here is not always a place that a lot of us have practiced spending time in. One of the ways we can do that is breathing. So at BridgePoint, we talk a lot about box breathing. So in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. Another one we use is, and I always mix up the numbers, but 6-3-9. So in for 6, hold for 3, out for 9. Okay. That will help move energy. Okay. And if we can slow our breath, deepen our breath, that's also a message to our nervous system. We can come out of fight, flight, or freeze. Think of your breath like the gas and the brake pedal. What do we do when we're scared? Right? That's telling our system, okay, send all the blood to the major muscles. We're getting ready, fight, flight, or freeze. When we're able to slow our breath down, deepen our breath, it's like the gas pedal that just says stop. Okay? Other ways to come back into our body. Shrugging, stretch. Can you feel your big toe on your right foot? So just connecting with our physical body. mindfulness, paying attention and being in the present moment, but again, without judgment. Okay. At BridgePoint, we do tea time. I love that as a mindful activity because we can use tea, and you could use dishwashing, you could use while you're having a shower, going for a walk, even just sitting on your couch, but paying attention to your present experience. So I'll use tea drinking for example. So once I have this tea, I'm paying attention to the pattern on the cup, the warmth in my hands, the smell of the tea, the feel of the steam on my face, the sensations, the flavors, the temperature of the tea as I sip it, right? That's all being very mindful. When we're in the present moment, we can't be worried about the future. We're not worried about the past. You're only in the here and now. One of the other pieces often suggested is called 5-4-3-2-1. I don't know if any of you have heard about it. 5-4-3-2-1 is a practice of, in your environment, what are 5 things you can hear, 5 things you can see, and 5 things you can feel physically, right? But you don't have to do 5. You could do 4, 3, 2, or 1. Right? But so let's say 3 things I can see would be the yellow car parked out front. I can see the brown in my carpet on the floor, and I can see my face on the screen. And then I would do 2, and then I do 1. 3 things I can hear are the birds through the open window in my backyard. I can hear the car that just passed out front. And I can hear my fridge that just kicked in. And 3 things I could feel would be, I can feel my bum on the couch. I can feel the breeze coming in through the kitchen window. And I can feel the sun on my right foot, just coming through the window, landing on my foot. Okay, so again, notice how it is really specific. The more specific we can be, again, we're just drawing our attention, we're being in the present moment. Another one you can do is just look around the room and say, list off specifically 5 things that are green. Anything like that, okay? Okay, thoughts and actions. When I find myself on the well-worn track, the amazing thing about our brain is its plasticity. Okay, so over time, we've built neural pathways in our brain so that when we feel uncertain, when we feel distress, when we feel sadness, when we feel scared, automatically, unconsciously, in a nanosecond, we travel down that pathway that says, oh, sadness, I need to isolate. Oh, I'm feeling uncertain, I need to go purge. Oh, I need to go exercise. Oh, I need to defend. And I feel attacked, I'm gonna attack right back, right? So we can retrain our brain, we can build new neural pathways in our brain, but we have to manually override those old ones. And so I often use this example of the train tracks. And if you want to manually lift a train on a track, what do you need to do? You need to go out, you need to walk over to this post sticking out of the ground. Just pray that it's not broken, iced, rusted, and you manually shift it and the train will shift to the new track, okay? This is this idea of doing the 1%. It's not a big move. It can feel that way because it's a manual override where it's going to feel uncomfortable because you're doing something that you usually wouldn't do, right? But if you can do that 1 degree shift, like this image on the screen shows, it feels insignificant. So great, I'm going to feel my big toe on my right foot. That feels pretty insignificant right now. If we can practice that over time with more mindfulness, like the plane in the diagram on the screen, we're going to end up in a really different location. We're going to be having different conversations with others, with ourselves. We're going to be feeling our feelings differently. We're going to be connecting in different ways, okay? It literally takes 1 degree to change water into steam, water into ice. Same idea, 1 degree can, over time, have huge implications for us. So if we're going to make 1 degree of change, where do we start? How do I know what to, where to make that course correction? Turn to your values. What do you value? How do you want to show up? What is most meaningful to you? And so your values might include courage, humor, respect, compassion. So when I'm trying to choose what to do differently, that 1 degree, 1%, and let's say my value is connection and family, well, then I'm going to make time in my day to FaceTime my nieces or phone my parents or my sister, right? So one can inform the other. And when we are working from a place of our values, we're going to be more in alignment, which means what I feel on the inside is going to match how I'm showing up on the outside, and vice versa. During uncertainty, we're also going to we need our resources, right? Healing doesn't happen in isolation. Getting through uncertainty doesn't happen in isolation. We are not solitary beings. We are built, hardwired for connection. Okay, but connection can show up in a lot of different ways, especially during this time. So your resources are going to include your marble jar people, right? We talk about that at BridgePoint. Brene Brown talks a lot about it, but who are the people that have earned the right to hear your story? So when you are giving yourself permission to feel, or you're finding yourself really struggling with a shame story, you can reach out to this person, right? And you know they've earned the right. You can trust them with that. Your resources are also going to include other people, pets, maybe faith communities. You are going to have resources in your community team. So knowing what your dietitian, your doctor, your psychiatrist, counselor, what have they set up in terms of can you access them virtually through Zoom, telehealth? Do they have a number I can call? BridgePoint, we've got our phone line still open Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 1 to 9. Leave a message, because if some of us are working on site and some of us are working remotely, thus the living room, but we're still answering, we're listening to voicemails and then returning calls, responding to emails, knowing your 811 numbers, the numbers for healthcare, that kind of thing. Put them up somewhere you can see them, because when we're in distress, when our brain goes offline, we're not going to be able to access those very easily. So having them available where you can just go to the desk, go to the fridge, and be like, oh yeah, I need to call Shelly, or right, I haven't FaceTimed my nieces today, I'm going to do that, right? But the last thing any of us want to feel in this time of uncertainty is alone, and we're not. It's going to feel different right now, though, because we might not be able to see them physically. So we're going to have to find other ways. I love this pose. I want to wake up every day and do this pose. Remember, courage is contagious. And so if you can show up for yourself, then other people are going to see that and they're going to start showing up. Okay. I know I'm trying to do my darndest to show up in courageous ways, doing things different, right? And it's a struggle. And we're just taking it hour by hour, day by day, and you're not alone. So reach out. I'm hoping that all of you are staying safe and taking care of yourselves. Please keep in touch. Let us know how you're doing. And keep your eye on the BridgePoint webpage, Facebook page, because we're brainstorming different ways that we can come to you and be accessible during this time. So everyone, take care, and we'll see you later.